Welcome everyone to our second workshop on using the electronic resources available to us through our COVE library subscription. I want to start by acknowledging that Toronto is in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat, covered by the Dish with One Spoon territory, the Williams Treaty, and Treaty 13, and to express how grateful I am to be welcomed into these treaties on this land. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lorraine Jansen-Koistra, professor of English here, and I'll be co-hosting the workshop with my colleague at Purdue University, Dino Faluga, who is also the director of COVE. For those of you who aren't sure how the acronym spells out, it is the Collaborative Organization for Virtual Education. And COVE is a free resource used by literature, language, and history teachers around the world. And in the course of this workshop, I'll be giving you various URLs that you can go to. But the simple one is for COVE is just editions.covecollective.org. And I'm thrilled to say that Ryerson University Library has agreed to pilot a 2-year subscription to COVE. What that means is all the resources, the content and tools at COVE are free for faculty and students within COVE Studio. And we'll be talking a little bit about the difference between COVE Studio and Editions in the course of the talk. And I'll give you the URL to that as well, but it's basically ryerson.covecollective.org. And in this workshop, Dr. Faluga is going to provide instructions, demonstrations, examples, tips of ways you can use COVE Studio to enhance your teaching, whether it's remote or in person, can be used for either purpose. And integrated into your course design. And that's really simple for us at X University because we use D2L, and D2L can be integrated with COVE very simply. So both your COVE subscription through the library and D2L are accessed via the same login and password that you always use. So after Dino's presentation, then we'll have time for question and answer. And he's also going to be providing an amazing handout that he prepared, or a link to it that's online, on teaching tips. So you don't have to remember everything or keep notes on everything. But feel free to write questions in the chat and so forth. I will try to monitor that while Dino is doing his presentation, and we'll be sure to raise all the questions and give plenty of time for Q&A and discussion at the end of his talk. So without further ado, now I'm going to turn the controls over to you, Dino, and I'll monitor the chat.
Okay, great. So I have a canned quick introduction to COVE. Some of you have already seen it, but I'm going to start there just because this is being recorded and some people who will see this won't have seen the previous presentation. It's just 10 minutes long, but it'll quickly go over the basics about COVE Studio and what COVE is about. So I'm going to share my screen here and turn over to Keynote. So here is, again, a quick demonstration. I've got some screencasts. I'll show you some of the things you can do with COVE Studio, but I just wanted to start by explaining the difference between COVE Studio and COVE Edition. So part of what we're doing here at COVE Studio is creating a protected space that's password protected. That's what Ryerson and a number of other universities, Princeton, Chicago, Purdue, Alabama, most recently Columbia College at Chicago, have all been subscribing so that you and your students can have immediate access through SAML authentication. Same thing you use to access Brightspace or EduRealm. So as I say, there have been a number of them. The nice thing here is that this is a way for you to protect the privacy of your students. That's one reason why this is password protected, so students don't intend their annotations to be read by the world. And we made it very easy for you to control which texts you put into your anthology, even more specifically, which titles you put into your anthology. So we're approaching anthologies very differently. We're taking monolithic anthologies, like say the Transatlantic Romanticism anthology that was published by Longman and that we're about to begin encoding. We're taking that very heavy 1,250 page anthology and taking each of the individual titles and making them into basically Lego pieces. So you can pick the ones that you want, and you can pick ones from multiple anthologies, as well as the text that we've encoded, put them all together into one anthology, make it very easy to share that with your students and to create a group of people that see each other's annotations. The other reason for password protection is that this helps the resource weigh in favor of fair use. COVE is nonprofit, it's educational, and it's not world readable. Still, you should keep in mind whether you are fully following fair use guidelines. And we have some guidelines on that. When you upload texts, we make it possible for you to upload your own. Say if you're in a rush. We are also happy to encode text for you upon request using a consortium, labor from a consortium of universities, Ryerson being one of them, who provide graduate student labor that we train, and we manage the workflow for these students. And they gain alternative academic skills that they can then make use of in their own careers. A good example was Jenna Herdman at Carleton University, one of our consortium schools, which just hired as a program officer at SSHRC. So it's great stuff for them to learn. And that's how we've managed to build content so quickly. We went from 1 million words last year to now 8.5 million words of content. And we have a lot of projects going forward, including a number of grants to support the encoding of text by Black, Indigenous, and people of color that will be using up a lot of our RA time over the next year. So COVE Studio, what can it do? So I'm going to just show you quickly some of the things you can do. You can create an anthology, and we've made it easy for you to quickly create an anthology. I'll do one here called Ryerson Anthology. You can add as much description as you want, add a whole syllabus if you want. You can customize it with an image. I'll pick one from Ryerson here, and I'll create it. Now, once you've created your anthology, it'll appear on your dashboard, which you see here. There's Ryerson Anthology. There's the image I picked. And from there, you can very quickly draw on that 8.5 million words of content to add texts. We've been doing a lot of Renaissance drama lately. Our content is strongest in the 19th century. That's where we began. So there's lots of material there. But we also have increasingly more and more material from the Restoration, say if you're interested in Afro-Ben, or say the Modernist period. I'll show you that in a second. In fact, we've been adding section editors to try to help us build content in these other areas. So there's, let's add Mrs. Dalloway. Now, once you click on all, once you've picked your text, and those are the texts that your students see, and they have immediate access to those texts just in your anthology. So you've created your own URL, your own web address that you can link to. Our texts, those that are vetted, are properly formatted, line numbers for poetry, the drama is properly formatted, it's ADA compliant. You can order alphabetically by title or by clicking author, so you can find the text you're looking for. And we've made it very easy for you to then add users. You need to ask your students to log in one time, and as soon as they've done that, you can then find them to add to your anthology. I'll just add one, Kenneth Crowell, who's actually one of the admin directors at Purdue, and I'll add myself. You should add yourself as well. So you thus create a group of people who can see each other's annotations. In this case, just two of us. But of course, you'd have more.
Excuse me for a minute, Dino.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can you expand the size of the display at all, or is that not possible?
Well, I'm doing full screen right now, so I don't
Okay.
think I can go any bigger. I'm not sure what you're seeing on your end.
Yeah, no, it was just a request from a participant. So, okay. The
Yeah,
answer I
well,
got.
I'll be able to, I'll show you a link to a version of this how-to video that you can share with everyone, Lorraine, so that anything that you miss here or you want to see again, you'll have a place to go. You can also, as I mentioned, upload your own texts. And again, the goal here is to make it very easy for you to make material available. You just go to create new document, and we recommend using this paste directly into the form because you have more control over it. But basically any text here, I'm taking something from the Poetry Foundation that's open access and just pasting it in. We have a WYSIWYG, so you can format it as you wish. WYSIWYG is what you see is what you get. So an interface that allows you to make changes without having to learn code. And then you just have to add some metadata so you can find that file again, including the author, last name first, so it alphabetizes properly. And once you have everything and set it to annotatable and create it, it's then made available for you to use in your anthology. So if I go back to my dashboard, you'll see there Ryerson Anthology, the anthology I just built. Now, if I do another search for AfroBen, I did a search earlier for AfroBen, you'll see the same text plus the one that I just added. So I can assign that to my anthology, and it means that immediately it is available for students. There are the two students, well, me and another person who I assigned to this anthology. You can begin annotating. Now, this is something that was uploaded very quickly. So it's not marked as vetted because we don't know if it probably is ADA compliant, but I can't attest to that. And it doesn't have line numbers, as you can see. I'm very happy to show you how to do that, add line numbers, et cetera. And in fact, we very recently had a great example where a professor at Chadron State University needed Beowulf immediately for the first week of class. And we weren't able to accommodate such a quick turnaround. So we taught her the code and she did it herself. And it was such a good job that we've now shared that Beowulf with everyone. So, if you like coding, you're interested in that, we can help you do that. Otherwise, you can just do a quick cut and paste and make things available. You can then annotate text with your students. Here's Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. As you see there, when images are significant for a work, as with Lewis Carroll, we try to include those. And if I click on groups and whole document, you can see all of the annotations. This is an actual class. These are actual student annotations. Clicking on any one takes you directly to that point in the text. The other nice thing about COVE Studio, and I'll say more about this in the teaching ideas portion of this presentation, is that the annotation tool makes it very, very easy for you to add in images, audio, and film. So let's say I go back to that Tempest that I have in my anthology and I want to add, let's say I'm a student and I want to add an image of Shakespeare. I just need to find a JPEG somewhere out on the web. I suggest to my students that they use Wikipedia. You have to click on the image twice because the second time is the actual JPEG. But I just copy that address, paste it in, and save. I click this button, my groups can view this annotation so that I share it at that point with everyone. That's important because that's how the students control their own privacy. They can annotate on their own with no intention of sharing it with the class. Or if it's an assignment where they're going to be graded on their annotation, they can do their annotation and continue to edit it and click that button once they're ready for everyone to see their annotation. But as you see, it's very easy to add in an image. Students really like that. And in general, students really enjoy the annotation assignment because they see each other's annotations. So it's a great way to add an extra layer of conversation with your class. It has transformed my own teaching. It helps me to come into my face-to-face teaching with ideas. I'll give you some tips on what you can do to facilitate that. The students that benefit especially, I think, are those students who are shy in the regular classroom for whatever reason, aren't comfortable talking face-to-face. Say first-generation students, BIPOC students in my own experience, students who, or say the A student who writes that brilliant A paper midway through, but hasn't said a peep in class and sort of comes out of nowhere. Those students really benefit from this, and they really contribute as a result to the general spirit of the class, because especially that A student who's very shy and doesn't speak, by writing those lovely annotations, they have this opportunity for participation, and they tend to raise the ante of the entire class. So a student that might have been quiet and say nothing and have no impact on conversation suddenly actually are driving the conversation. That's all really interesting, and students really do enjoy seeing each other's annotations. And as I say, the process tends to raise the ante because it's you can very quickly see, well, how does my annotation stack up against my peer? You can very easily integrate it into your learning management system. So at Purdue, we use Brightspace. As you see, I've created a URL there, Ryerson Anthology. By creating an anthology, I've created a unique web page address so that I can just provide that link directly in Brightspace, and it takes me seamlessly to COVE Studio. And this is my class from a year ago fall. You can see my students there. I can filter for each individual student. You can see that they've used the image function here for George III. One said, isn't that the same George III as from Hamilton?
George Washington's yielding his power and stepping away. Is that true?
So I was able to very quickly add in a link to a YouTube video of the best piece that King George sings in that play. So you can see and I'll show you some other examples of how you could make use of film in your annotations. And finally, the other interesting development that actually Lorraine has inspired others to do is to create an edition, especially with upper level graduate students. And she did the first, which was an edition of Clemens Hausman's The Werewolf that she successfully put together with her graduate students, a class on textual editing, then submitted for publication and went through peer review and copy editing, and is now published. She's since been followed by Albert Pianki at the University of Alabama, who did an edition of William North's The City of Jugglers, an obscure text that no university press will touch, no way that you can get it published at a university press. So we provide an alternative at a time when increasingly it's very hard to get critical editions published. And there are others coming through the pipeline now. And in fact, I did this in the spring. I did an edition of Amour de Voyage. There it is. These are my students' annotations. It's going through peer review now. We made use of sound in our edition.
Over the great windy waters and over the clear crested summits,
which allowed us to really analyze carefully the dactylic hexameter, very strange meter of the poem. We had one student who was an art historian. She did research on period photographs of Rome where the poem is set. You can see her collection of McPherson photographs here on her annotations. And once it's published, it gets ported over to the publication side, which is COVE Editions. And there we have other tools. These you are not part of the Ryerson subscription, but they're available for just $10. There's a timeline builder that you see there that we used, a map builder where you can annotate a map, in our case, showing the locations in Rome where it was set, or locations in England that were significant for Clough's life. You see England looks a little different there because there's an 1880s ordnance survey that's a layer presented over the map. That's our annotation. You can easily turn that on and off. There's a Google map behind it. And then finally, there's a gallery builder over at COVE Editions, and that's where we then later also collected these photographs from the 1850s and 60s of the locations that we discussed. So that's my quick overview. I mean, what I can say is that we've had a lot of users, ever more users as we go forward, and especially as we add in institutional subscribers. Students really like it. They tend to have a very different relationship to the text that you teach. So rather than just quickly skimming a codex book that they hold in their hands, they get invested in the book. They claim it as their own and really follow along on each other's annotations. Professors have enjoyed using it. And that has allowed us to grow quickly, and but also at the right speed so that we can also respond to user requests as best we can. We're nonprofit, so any funds that come to us, we simply put back into our efforts in order to improve the interface. And so we're very happy to hear about your requests. I don't know if we'll have the money to implement them immediately, but we'll do our best over time.
So Dino, before you leave that screen,
Nope, sorry, too late.
if you could just very quickly demonstrate again how you add users to the group.
Yeah, you bet. So actually, I'll go to a different place now. Hold on. What happened here? Am I showing my screen?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
sorry.
this is our homepage, our subscription page at Ryerson.
Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah. Are you going to show us something different?
Right now, are you seeing COVE Studio Ryerson University?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Right. So this is where you log in. Are you seeing me logging into your interface?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. There's something weird on my end, so it doesn't look normal to me. So there's the Ryerson interface. That's how you get in, just as you get into most things. You guys use Brightspace, so do we here at Purdue. So it makes it very easy to link between the two. So here, for example, is my fall class. So here I have the links directly to those texts. You can link to longer works. I've just shown you poetry so far, but here, for example, was Wuthering Heights that I examined with my students. And the other thing to keep in mind is you want to click on, there's this difference between visible portion that just shows me the annotations here versus the whole document. And also you can filter between me, the annotations I made, and those that my group made. So I'm going to click group and whole document, and you can see all the annotations that my students made there. Now you asked me specifically, how do I add users? So here's Ryerson. I can quickly create an anthology just so you can see that process again. So let's just call this Ryerson for the workshop anthology. Text, you can add in as much description as you want. I'll go ahead and add an image here. I think I have that Ryerson image I used earlier, and I'll create an anthology. Takes a little second for it to build, so just give it a couple seconds there, and it will build for me this anthology. There it is, Ryerson for the workshop at Ryerson University. When I click on it, you'll see that its address is Ryerson for the workshop. And that's the URL that you can then add in to Brightspace. You can add a URL directly to the entire anthology, which takes you to this page, but also each title you add in will have its own URL. So I was just talking to Sophie about the Blake archive work we've been doing. We've been adding Blake texts with plates. So I'll go ahead and add a couple of those so I can show you those as well. And then once you've picked your texts, you just click all. So you see I've just added 2 Blake texts. There's the sick rose with the accompanying plate. Now, if I want to add users, I go to users here. And again, the students need to have logged in once. So like early on, the first week, first class, just log in. Click on this link, log in using your Ryerson credentials. As soon as that's happened, you can look for your users here. So if I either by email or name, for name, just use a single word. Let's see if that calls, yeah, there's Lorraine. So I'm going to add her to my anthology. And again, it's important to add yourself as well so that the group function, oh, I'm not there because I'm not at Ryerson. So I'm not actually in the database, I don't think. Let me see, unless I'm over here. Let's check it out. No, oh yeah, there I am. I just don't have a name there yet.
Can I ask you a question, Dino? Can I just stop you for a second?
Yeah.
So back in the previous moment when you were adding the Blake texts, how did you get that list of Blake texts?
So you just do a search here for title and author. I can provide Lorraine with our most recent list of titles. There's over 850 titles now, 8.6 million words I think we're at now. I expect we'll be well over 10 million words by this time next year, if not getting close to 15 million, just because of things that we have coming up.
Is there a particular title, Sophie, that you'd like him to search?
Yeah, let's see how
Well,
well we're doing.
Yeah, well, I think I know what just happened. I was trying to find what you had by Wordsworth, and I think I put Wordsworth in the title screen.
Yes, that's right. That's easy. That's easy to make.
Text where Wordsworth's in the title. But
Yeah,
I was,
so there's
when
Wordsworth.
when I did an anthology not in the Ryerson portal, but originally I played with putting an anthology together in the regular one where I signed in through NAVSA. And there was a few texts there that now I'm not finding. One of them is Mary Prince's slave narrative.
We're just in the process of redoing that one, and
so
we'll be ready like within days.
Okay, because it was previously available unvetted. But that's why it's not available now, because
no, it should. Well, no, it's because not all the. So when we created Ryerson University, your version, we ported over all the vetted documents, right? Because the unvetted ones could have been uploaded by anybody, and again, we don't know if they're well encoded or if they're ADA compliant, et cetera. But we are, as it happens, like now, we are preparing that text. And we'll have it as soon as it's ready. It will get uploaded to all of the instances of COVE, the original one that you went to earlier, but also the Ryerson COVE, Princeton COVE, Chicago COVE, et cetera. So it'll appear soon. And if you send me an email, I'd be very happy to let you know when that happens. But it will be happening in the next few days, actually. And since you mentioned Wordsworth, this is a good example of how we're making use of anthologies. So Paula Feldman has made available to us her British Women Poets of the Romantic Era. We just finished encoding that entire 850-page anthology, which means that each individual title, including the head notes, are now available to assign to your anthology. So if I go back to all, you'll see that I now have that head note on Dorothy Wordsworth from the Feldman anthology. And soon we'll be doing this for all of the titles in the Joel Pace, Koenig, Woodyard, Nelson, is that what I'm saying? Anthology. So I think actually I might even have one ready here. Yeah, so here's the Letitia Barbeau head note. So if I sign that, that's the first one, but we're just getting started. So we're going to have all the others available soon as well.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it mean that a text is vetted or not vetted? And can my students see a text if it's not vetted?
Yes, they can. Yeah. So you saw me in my little video upload a text, that Afro-Ben poem. So you can upload your own texts and they will be available as unvetted texts. Now, if you want to have it be vetted, that just means that we have encoded it, that we have added in proper line numbers.
Oh, I see. So
let's say, we do go to Wordsworth here and we pick one of those poems by Wordsworth that are vetted. So let's say we are 7 here. And I go back to my anthology. There's we are 7. So that means that we have proper line numbers and our coding standards are such that this is very easy for machines to read so that it's available to the blind and anyone else who needs help with the reading of the text. So that's basically what vetted means.
Okay,
it's gone through a process of care where our consortium workers have annotated it. It's been checked over by our admin directors. It's been checked over by me, and we've uploaded it. And also, if we ever find an error, if we miss something, we'll correct it and mark the new text as vetted. So the vetted one is the one that's the most trustworthy.
Okay, thanks.
Now, the other thing I was going to show you is I was actually going to work largely from this document. So what Lorraine and I have been working on, and we'll share that link. Lorraine can maybe add that to the chat if she has a moment. So this is over at covecollective.org. There you can find a number of things to help you think about how to use Cove Studio. We have a number of articles there For example, this is the most recent one we published that's really just about annotation and how she experienced annotation. We also have some articles about the tools at COVE editions, like the gallery builder that Catherine Golden has made good use of. I follow what I learned from these articles myself. So for example, Laura Rotuno had an assignment where she had students annotate poetry either as craft, where they do scansion and various other annotations tied to that, or as content, and then used those tags so you can very quickly find just the content annotations or just the craft annotations. I do that just as a matter of course now in my own teaching. So these often give good ideas. And here's Lorraine's discussion of her creation of an edition with graduate students. Here's Josh King talking about how he used COVE to supplement a brick and mortar exhibition at the Armstrong Browning Library in Baylor. And actually Rebecca Mitchell did something similar at the University of Birmingham. And then also under teaching here, there's teacher resources. And there you can find syllabi that have made use of COVE. Resources, here for example is Lorraine's very thorough guide for creating a digital edition with students for her class. And there you will find this document called Teaching Ideas, which I'm gonna click on here. And this is just a place that Lorraine and I put together largely for this seminar because unlike the first introductory seminar or workshop, whatever we're calling this, this one was more about teaching ideas and things that you can do with COVE Studio. Here, the first page just describes the difference between Studio and Editions, but this document largely concentrates on Studio and the kinds of texts that we make available. As I say, we've been adding up quite a bit of Renaissance drama, and we provide ideas here for things you can do. For example, one reason we have so much Renaissance drama is that my colleague at Purdue's also a subscriber, does a class on Shakespeare and film. And so he could immediately see how useful it would be to show different versions of the same text that way. I can show you what I mean here. So somewhere here, is this it? No, I have to find out where I put that. I have too many things open at once. I have an example at, actually, I think I might have it at your place. Let me see, Ryerson. Yeah, oh yeah, there it is, Renaissance drama. I think I did it for you guys. So here, for example, is an anthology I built at Ryerson University's COVE. And if I click on Hamlet here, again, you want to go to whole document and groups. You see that there are 3 annotations I've made here for to be or not to be. So if I click on it, it takes me directly to that point in the text. And what I've done is I've added in 3 different versions of those famous lines.
To be or not to be, that is the question.
And there are others at YouTube that you can add in.
To be or not to be.
Here's the Kenneth Branagh version. You can imagine how neat this would be, right? You could then have the students perform their own version of their lines, upload it to YouTube, and then make it available to add to their own annotation, perhaps even alongside these famous actors. So there's an example. And the way you do that is when you add in an anthology like this. For video, it's a little bit, so as you saw in my video that I started with, I just pasted in a JPEG link here and it automatically appeared. For video, you need an embed code. So you click on this here, the code. And a lot of sites will include an embed code. So for example, if I go to YouTube and look for to be or not to be, there's Kenneth Branagh. This one, the lieutenant. So if I go there.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically.
Okay, so there it is. So at any given place in YouTube, you have this share, and a lot of other sites have this too. For example, Flickr has a similar thing where you say share, and it has an embed code. Right? You just copy that there. If I go back to my CoStudio thing and go to the code behind it and paste that in, there's the embed code. Save. Now, this is an important button here. Click this if you're ready to share it with other people. My groups can view this annotation and save. It's that easy to add in a video.
To be or not to be? That is the question.
Or if the students did their own performance, they could upload that and then make it available through the annotations. As you see, it's seamless. It looks like it's part of it, but actually nothing's been uploaded to COVE Studio. I know your librarians are concerned about copyright infringement, so this is a way around that actually. The link actually exists somewhere else. It's just been embedded within the annotation. The other examples that I have, let's have to go back to where, oh, here it is. So here's the Shakespeare. And you know what we've done here is gone through a bunch of the texts. I just uploaded a bunch of Afro-Ben poems like the Orinoco, and given some ideas of things you can do. For example, discussing the history of emancipation over the course of the 19th century and incorporate that within the annotations. Or let's say you want to just concentrate on a single year, like 1819. There are a number of texts that are available there. We even have James Chandler's article about Peterloo that discusses that, and that's part of what we've been doing is incorporating over time articles from my earlier editing project, Branch, which is Britain Representation in 19th Century History, and making them easily available. And you could have students analyze 1819, either locations or historical elements that they then share with each other in the annotations. And you can even use the other tools that are available at Editions to facilitate that, like the timeline builder and the map builder. Or you could imagine looking at different filmed versions of Austin, of a single scene in Austin, to show just how differently that scene has been represented over time or by different actors and different directors. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood is particularly well represented, including Lorraine's edition of Goblin Market, one of the first peer-reviewed editions at COVE Editions. And we've now made available a lot of the head notes from our own editions or Branch Collective articles that we've published that are available at COVE Editions and also within COVE Studio. I mentioned that part of what we're doing this next year is radically increasing the number of texts by Black, Indigenous, and people of color that we're doing in association with the Bigger Six Romantic Project, the Undisciplined Victorian Classroom with Adam Matthew, and with SOAS University of London, which has one of the best collections of Asian and African material that we're discovering in the archive, finding and making available to everyone through this project. It looks like, this hasn't been announced yet, but it looks like we'll be able to set up an arrangement with the Black Book Project, which is at Kansas and the University of Chicago. And it looks like they'll be making available to us 50 novels by Black authors from before 1925 that we'll also make available. That alone will be 6 or 7 million words of content. Say you're doing Wild, there's a great amount of material there, including all of the court documents. So you can imagine how interesting that would be for exploring the history of sexuality and linking get text from the 19th century to the present day. Lots of Eliot and Dickens, but also, as I mentioned, Woolf texts. The other thing that I wanted to underscore here is how useful the tag scheme is. One of the things that you can do at COVE Studio is create your own tags. Let's pick a bigger text here. Yeah, so here is Wuthering Heights. So this is a longish text. In this case, what I did is I really wanted my students to dig into a single chapter. I really like chapter 3, where the ghost of Catherine appears. And so I said, well, let's really just dig into that chapter. And so I had them just annotate that chapter. These are my actual student annotations. You see they've made good use of the images, image upload function to discuss the text, and allowed them to really dig in one section, really get to know one section of the novel. But obviously novels are really long, and part of what's difficult is just being on the same page, literally. So one of the things that we do is we've also made available the ability to create your own tags. So there are some preset ones that you can use. These are color coded, but you can also create your own tag scheme. So let's say there are certain sections that you want them to read for a given day. You could imagine a tag scheme where you just have the date, 9/5. Let's say you just want the passages you want them to look at for a given day. You could add in study questions for that day. You share it with the rest of the group. Let's remember what I put down, 9/5/21, and save. Now, if I go down, let's say, way at the end of the text, I want to also want them to look at this other text. What did I say, 5/21? No, oh, I've already forgotten. What did I say, 5/10/21?
9/5/21.
Oh, that's what I did, 9/5.21. You have other study questions here. Save. That means that when you go back to your filters and you do that and how are they tagged? You put in 9.5.21. You see, it's very easy then to go directly to that spot in the text, and you could add in as much information as you want for them to consider as they're looking at that text, and then they can themselves annotate that section. Or if I go to the second one that I added in, it'll automatically take me to that point in the text. So again, in some ways, there are ways in which there are advantages to approaching the work in this way, separate from a codex edition. It's actually, we don't have page numbers here, but you have a yet better way to access specific sections within the text. The other, let's see, oh yes, use the tag scheme. I've mentioned how you could add in multimedia. So you could imagine, I'll give you another good example. Let's say, like I was imagining, I'm about to do a study abroad in Italy that's centered around Leonardo da Vinci and Venice. They go to Venice. So I was thinking, wouldn't it be really neat to be able to say, add a poem about Venice, like Browning's. I'm a Victorianist, so I often gravitate to those examples, but any text could work. Where I upload the text and then I have students add their own images. This is a previous study abroad that I did for the Honors College at Purdue, and we used a Flickr account. And students shared photos with each other. So again, this is very similar to embedding a movie clip. If I click on one of the photos that we shared with each other, here, let me move you guys out of my way here. There's, you see this, sorry, it's hard to get to because there. So here you have this sharing button, and there again, you have an embed code right here. So if I copy that, it's very easy to then add into my text here. I have no idea why I would put something having to do with Piazza San Marco in a Wordsworth poem, but let's say I did. I can annotate, again, go to the code view and paste in the embed code and save. So my groups can view that. And you see I have a direct link to that page in Flickr. So, I'm just giving you food for thought. The tools there, the platform's there, there are many different kinds of ways that you can make use of it. I'm just giving you some ideas here. And that's what we've done with that teaching document here. You could imagine using audio, for example, as we did with our edition of Amour de Voyage. So you can really hear, say, a professional person reading the poetic meter. There are many, many examples of, since Sophie is here, of renditions of poetry at romantic circles, for example, that you could directly embed within your annotation so students can hear the poetry. Or if you're interested in languages, all languages render very well, both the texts and the annotation function. We've used it for Hebrew and Chinese, Japanese, etc. So very nice, obviously, for teaching anything in another language, so you can hear what it sounds like in that language. The other thing that's nice is that you can very easily link classes, and this has been done before. So most recently, Rebecca Nesbitt at the University of Wisconsin and Priyanka Jacob, who's at University of Illinois, Loyola University Chicago, linked their two classes because they were both teaching Mary Seacole's Wonderful Adventures work. And so they decided as two classes separate to together annotate the text. So you could imagine ways in which you could link together. I made some suggestions here, say, link a history class and an English class. You can think about the different approaches to the Crimean War, including, say, maybe, again, I'm a Victorianist, say Tennyson's Charge of the Light Brigade. It would be really neat to do that together with a history and an English class, or say a PRB work with an art history class. And then of course you can also do it yourself. You can upload text, you can teach students how to encode. I did that with my grad class when we did our edition of Mot de Voyage, just so they can understand something about the logic of text encoding behind our edition. And then even build your own edition from any period. You know, we started in the 19th century, so the examples that are there now that have gone through peer review are 19th century examples, but we're adding section editors for the 18th century and the Renaissance and the modernist period. We're hoping to have begin seeing editions in other fields as well. So that's my quick overview of the tools. I want to make sure there's plenty of time with questions. And are there any that you've seen, Lorraine, that I could address? I think you're muted.
Yes, I am. Sophie's just posed a good one. She invites you to speak a bit more about what the limitations are on what an instructor can add. The limitations also with respect to formats, what kind of formats can be uploaded. And quick reminder, where was the button to add something not in the COVE library of text?
Okay, good question. So let me get to the Ryerson version. Here it is. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so let me get rid of this one because there's no reason why I'm being Venice here. So now to edit something that you've done, you hover over it, and that window, you can only edit your own things, but I can click on this pencil button to go back to it and edit the text or to change its status.
Yeah, but sorry to interrupt you, but I think the question is more about adding a text that does not exist in COVE, but that you want to teach.
Yeah, I'll show you that in a second, but since I was about to delete this annotation, I just wanted to show you how that works. So you edit, and then if you click the X, it asks, are you sure you want to delete this? And I say yes. So I've gotten rid of that. I'm going to go to my dashboard, and there you see documents. There, or by clicking on documents. And here's an easy place where you can find things. So if you just click here for vetted, you can see all of the vetted documents that are available. So you can do a quick search there. But I'm happy also to provide you with a list of things that are available now. Here, I create a new document. So that's the button that you're asking about, like that. Now you said what format. So you can try to convert a Word or a PDF document, but as you probably know, there's always a lot of gobbledygook, especially with Word documents. So it often takes more, makes more work for yourself than otherwise. Personally, I prefer to paste directly into the form. So there you just need the text and you can just paste it in directly, paste or type directly into the form. If you know something about coding or want to learn about coding and like that, you can also do that. You just click on the code view And, Rebecca Nesbitt, for her edition of Mystery and Scarlet, she included TEI, et cetera. So you can go as far as you want, adding in complexity, but we've made it possible for you to just do it with this WYSIWYG interface with, plenty of elements here. You can add in images, et cetera.
And just to remind Sophie, when Dino did this the last time, he just went to Poetry Foundation, copied a poem and pasted it into this box.
That's right, into this box right here. And then it cleans it up a little bit. This box automatically cleans up any extraneous, like if you're doing it from a Word document that you own and you copy and paste, it'll strip it of any extraneous gobbledygook, which Word tends to add. And then from there, you can, add in headers, format in various ways, add in links, add in images, add in movies even, movie links. And then you're asked about guidance for fair use. So you can click that link there for guidance. Fair use is a gray area. As I said, we weigh in favor of fair use because COVE is nonprofit. We're not trying to squeeze anybody here. We're just trying to survive. And in fact, the reason for COVE largely is what's happened with other DH initiatives that have, the biggest problem with DH is sustainability. A good example is Romantic Circles, which was very stable for a very long time. It just took Neil Frystadt's impending retirement for Maryland to decide, oh, that's it, we're not going to fund it anymore. And it had to move over to the University of Colorado. Very similar story with the Nines project, very well endowed, had a tenure line tied to it. I was involved with that from the beginning. You'd think that would be enough to make it sustainable. And again, it just took a change of dean and president for that to not be the case. So the money that comes in through subscriptions is designed to be nonprofit and to provide an alternative to the commercial presses, which have been squeezing libraries more and more every year. And it also gives us an opportunity to create an alternative open access publishing space and a place to quickly share material with other people. Now, in this case, it's nonprofit, it's educational, and it's not world readable. That all weighs in favor of fair use. Plus, when you upload something at the Ryerson instance of COVE Studio, only other people at Ryerson can see that. So only other students and faculty who log into Ryerson will see that. Still, you should keep in mind, fair use guidelines, and we put a bunch of that here, but that's the nature of fair use. It is a gray area, so there's a lot of text there about things you should keep in mind to determine what is and is not, and might not be acceptable to add in.
Yeah, so fair rule of thumb is if it's before 1925, you're probably okay. If you're not sure, ask Anne Ludbrook at the library, our copyright librarian. But generally speaking, for educational use, I don't think you need to worry too much. If there's a problem, you will be asked to take it down. You won't be otherwise attacked.
Yeah, I mean, a good analogous example.
I do see, Dino, that we are out of time here. We've got 1 minute left. So I just wanted to say, does anybody have any last questions, comments, or concerns they'd like to raise before we lose Dino's expertise?
While you're thinking of that, I'll just very, very quickly add that a good analogous example is Cultura Media, which gets used, I'm assuming you use that with Brightspace. That's a for-profit company that allows you to upload even recent films that you make available to your students. But that's an example of something that's allowed when it's password protected. You're not sharing it with lots of other people, and it is educational. We even add the nonprofit side. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it is good to, to think about that and what is fair and what isn't fair.
Yeah, and don't forget, as follow-ups, you can go on COVE, you can look at videos that demonstrate all the things, wonderful things Dino's been demonstrating. There are all those pedagogical resources under teaching resources, and you can also follow up if you have any questions with Dino or me. So,
never hesitate to email if you have a question. We're much happier for you to ask us and for us to answer a question quickly, even if sometimes it just takes a quick 5-minute Zoom to say, look, here's the button you press. That's a lot nicer than, getting frustrated. And because, obviously there's always a little bit of a learning curve when you're starting a new platform. So we don't want you to feel worried about that, we've created a infrastructure so that we're there to support you as you go forward.
So good luck with all your teaching preps, and thank you, Dino, for all your sharing and expertise and preparing the teaching tips. And thank you to the Center of, I've lost the acronym, CELT, for all your facilitation.